Welcome to the African Weekly Roundup, a weekly program every Sunday here on HORUFADHI Media, where I discuss the latest news and events across the African continent. I'm Sudan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel, known as HORUFADHI TV, where you can find exclusive programs just behind the scenes, Salah among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sudan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's get straight into the news, and we'll kick off with our top story. Zambian police on Sunday found the bodies of 27 men believed to be migrants from Ethiopia, dumped in a farming area on the outskirts of the capital after they died from a suspected hunger and exhaustion, authorities said. A sole survivor was found alive in the early hours of Sunday morning and rushed to a Lusaka hospital for treatment, while the dead were transported to a mortuary for identification and postmortems to determine the exact cause of death, the police said. Preliminary police investigations showed the victims were all males, aged between 28 and 38, and had been dumped along a road by unknown people. Ethiopian migrants are often use Zambia while traveling to countries such as South Africa, though reports of deaths in transit there are rare. There are currently not much further updates on the matter as Zambian police investigate the incident. Police spokesman Danny Mawala said the police and other security wings have since instituted investigations into the matter. Gruesome images circulated online showcasing the deceased victims, which sent alarm bells across the African community on social media, particularly those of the Horn of Africa, with some assuming that the victims were either from Somalia or even Eritrea. We will update you any further news regarding this tragedy. Now over to Nigeria, where reports released on Sunday by investigative journalists from Reuters found evidence that the Nigerian army has run a secret, systematic and illegal abortion program in the country's northeast since at least 2013. Now the program allegedly involved terminating at least 10,000 pregnancies among women and girls, many of whom had been kidnapped and raped by Boko Haram militants, according to dozens of witnesses' accounts and documentation reviewed by Reuters. Now, the abortion mostly were carried out without the person's consent and often without their prior knowledge, according to witness accounts. Now, women and girls range from a few weeks to 8 months pregnant, with some were as young as 12 years old, interviews and records show. Now, this investigation is based on interviews with 33 women and girls who say they underwent abortion while in custody of the Nigerian army. Just one said she freely gave consent. Now, reporters also interviewed 5 civilian healthcare workers and 9 security personnel involved in the program, including soldiers and other government employees such as armed guards engaged in escorting pregnant women to abortion sites. In addition, Reuters reviewed copies of military documents and civilian hospital records describing or tallying thousands of abortions. Now, the existence of the army-run abortion program hasn't been previously reported. The campaign relied on deception and physical force against women who were kept in military custody for days or even weeks. 3 soldiers and a guard told Reuters they commonly assured women who often were debilitated from captivity in the bush that the pills and injections given to them were to restore their health and fight diseases such as malaria. Now, Reuters was unable to establish who created the abortion program or determine who in the military government ran it. Nigerian military leaders denied the program has ever existed and said Reuters' reporting was part of a foreign effort to undermine the country's fight against insurgency. In a response report, the Nigerian military released a 5-page document calling the report by Reuters wicked. It said the fictitious series of stories actually constitute a body of insults on the Nigerian people, culture. No people or culture in Nigeria practice such evil as dreamt up by the Reuters team, it said. The report went on to say that a crucial point to note is the fact that more than 245 UN agencies, international NGOs and local NGOs operate in the northeast of Nigeria, who are active in IDP camps and other concentrations of vulnerable peoples. They provide food, medical care and other services in collaboration with the Nigerian and Borno state governments, read the report. And in response to recent alleged revelations, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on Nigerian authorities to investigate allegations of systematic and coerced abortions reportedly perpetrated by its army. He called for a thorough investigation and immediate remedial actions and accountability measures if such measures were necessary. Additionally, the US government also stated that it was deeply troubled by this report. Now, Nigerian's defense chief said on Thursday the military will not investigate the report, saying that it was not true, and the Nigerian government was not going to respond publicly to this story. Now, more on the story as the news develops. Now, over to Sudan, where new waves of protests have erupted. Now, Sudanese security forces used tear gas and blocked roads and bridges on Thursday as they sought to contain scattered protests in the capital only days after a new political deal was signed by leaders. Now, thousands of protesters gathered in the afternoon in several areas of Khartoum, including close to the presidential palace, where the military and civilian parties on Monday struck a framework deal for the formation of a civilian government. Opinion about the deal is divided in the country, with some Sudani saying it could bring stability and others rejecting the military involvement. Now, protesters carried on after sunset, and police moved to shut several bridges between Khartoum and major cities neighboring it, causing a gridlock of traffic in some streets. The framework deal seeks to turn a page on an October 2021 military coup that derailed the transition towards a democratic elections started after the overthrow of former leader Omar al-Bashir in 2019. And the coup led to more than a year of anti-military rule street rallies in which medics, local medics that is, have recorded more than 120 protester deaths and a suspension of billions of dollars of badly needed international financial assistance. While the deal was welcomed by many in the international community, many Sudanese are concerned about the significant influence the military could have and justice for the dozens of protesters that were killed by security forces. US President Joe Biden is expected to back a permanent seat for the African Union in the group of G20 major economies seeking to elevate the continent's role, the White House said. Biden will make the announcement during a 3-day U.S. Africa summit that opens on Tuesday, where the United States will commit to the continent only after inroads by China and Russia in recent years. The U.S. failed to gain any major support from the African continent regarding its campaign in Ukraine this year, which analysts have pointed as evidence of weakening American influence on the continent. About 50 African leaders are expected to join Mr. Biden for the December 13th to 15th series of meetings, in which the U.S. is expected to discuss African Union's role with India, the G20 sub-president for 2023. Now, Biden's pledge comes after he threw his support behind expansion of the UN Security Council, including representation of Africa, during a speech to the world body in September. While few expect quick changes at the Security Council, the stance pits the US against China, especially Russia, which are seen as opposed to any move to dilute their veto powers. The Biden administration has backed the African Union's diplomatic role on the continent and sought warmer ties with the bloc's current chair, Senegalese President Macky Sall, who is expected to be at the Washington summit. Now, hosts Indonesia, the host of the G20 summit that is, invited Mr. Sall, the African Union chairperson, to take part in a meeting last month in Bali. Now, South Africa currently is the only African member of the G20, which was launched in its current form during the 2008 financial crisis to bring together world's top economies. And finally, to the World Cup, where Morocco coach has hailed the battling spirit of his players after they defeated Portugal 1-0 to become the first African national team ever to reach the World Cup semi-final stage. Yusuf Nasiri's header late in the first half on Saturday sent the Atlas Lions through to a last-four showdown with reigning champions France. We come up against a really great Portuguese team. We're drawing on all we have, and we still have guys injured. I told the guys before the match we had to write history for Africa, and I'm very, very proud, said the Moroccan coach, talking to France's TF1. Now, the Moroccan coach is a French-born former Moroccan international and had already made history of his own as the first African coach to take the team into the World Cup quarterfinals. Africa's back on the map of the football today, he said. We had the mentality and we knew we could make history for Africa. We had the right attitude for our people, for us, for Africa. It's always difficult for us African coaches. You don't think we can handle such teams tactically, he said. Now, Morocco have now defeated 3 of Europe's strongest teams in Qatar, beating Belgium in the group stage, Spain on penalties in the last 16, after drawing 0-0 with the 2018 runners-up Croatia in the opening match. And Morocco will take on holders France on Wednesday at Al Bayt Stadium, with the chance to become the first nation from outside Europe and South America, and from Africa itself, to reach the final. Congratulations poured in from African leaders across the continent. And that is the top stories on our program today. We hope you find this program very informative. Please tune in next week for further updates across the African continent.